said that it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they've been fooled. And that's the subject of today's video. Hi, I'm Tim Kaiser, and this is Sola Melodica. Welcome back. This is a place where I react to all types of music videos, searching for a glimmer of God in the gift of music. And today's video should be a little bit interesting. We're going to review Send Me Your Money by the band Suicidal Tendencies. So let's get into it. Okay, so yeah, they come out swinging. Welcome to the Church of Suicidal. We'll have a sermon and a wonderful recital. But before we go on, there's something I must mention, an important message I must bring to your attention. So he goes on, basically the accusation here is that the preacher, pastor, whatever, Reverend, has a message, and the message is give me money, right? So yeah, let's back it up a second here. Okay. Ouch. Okay, so, well, we need to address that. There's nothing in the Bible that says you can pay your way into heaven, right? Matter of fact, in Proverbs 11:4, it says that riches do not profit in the day of wrath or the day of judgment, right? So we don't get to heaven by paying money. We don't get to heaven by giving money to churches. I believe that the Catholic Church at one time believed that, and then through the Reformation they stopped. You can't buy people out of purgatory. You can't buy people out of hell. It's not possible. The only way we get to heaven is by the perfect, precious sacrifice that Jesus offered for us. All right, so and if you ever hear a pastor or a preacher tell you to give $500 or more, or that's what they're starting at, yeah, I recommend you run away. Okay, I need to interject something here. I forgot to do this at the beginning of the song. There is some salty language coming up in this song, so it won't get beeped out. It won't get censored. So consider yourself warned. Yeah. So far, I mean, the song itself, the song is a good. I love the music. Bass obviously is rocking. I'm not really familiar with Suicidal Tendencies. I think they were popular probably in the maybe late 80s, early 90s. I'm sure I saw them probably on MTV back when MTV actually had music, but not really familiar with this song. But he's bringing a solid message of correction, and unfortunately it's happening from an area outside of the church where it should happen internally, not externally, right? So let's keep moving along. So he had a couple things there. Now how much you give is your own choice, which actually, you know, that's right. You know, he goes on to say it's not, or he uses some coercion here. But the Bible's clear that when we give, we should give in what's in our heart to give, and God works in us to give appropriately, right? So giving's not bad, right? Giving's a good thing. However, there has been situations, circumstances, and ministries who have coerced, strong arm, stiff arm, twisted arms, whatever, how you want to word it, and convinced people to give money they didn't have with the promise of something that they would get back later, which is, you know, a bunch of hocus pocus, right? So, so 1 Timothy 6:10, it says, "For the love of money is a root of all sorts of evil, and some by longing for it have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." So there's a warning, right? I mentioned that this is the third video we've done in a row when it comes to money. We did Mud Honey, Prosperity Gospel, we did Tourniquet, Vanishing Lessons, and now this one, Some of Your Money by Suicidal Tendencies. And we've covered this. Money is not evil, inherently evil. However, it's easy for us as fallen people to fall in love with money and to exalt it in our life in a place where it really had no business. It's just a tool, right? It's a tool to buy food, to buy a house, to buy a car, whatever you may need. But it's not for us to, like, you know, glorify our lives with. And for that love of money, it starts getting roots in other places, and it can be disastrous. And there's nothing in the Bible that ever says give till it hurts. Again, if you hear a preacher say that, I would have a tendency to, like, just walk away. They have an ulterior motive here. We give as God purposes. We give as we purpose in our heart, and as God leads us to give. Right? All right.
Now dig it deep into your pocket. I want you to make it hurt. We'll take gas, we'll take dates, we'll take credit cards, we'll take jewelry, we'll take your mama's dentures. They got gold in them.
That was a pretty funny line there. He said they'd take your mama's dentures that got gold in them. I've heard horror stories where people would put, like, rings or jewelry in offering containers. This is ridiculous, people. Ridiculous. So ministries don't need your jewelry. They don't need that kind of stuff. And no matter what kind of nonsense they're spewing, promising something better in a different time frame, be very, very wary of that.
Who's gonna be the new king of the fakers? Take gas, we'll take dates, we'll take credit cards, we'll take jewelry, we'll take your mama's dentures. They got gold in them. So who's gonna be the new king of the fakers? Who's gonna take a place of Jim and Tammy Faye Bakers? See, my mama, she didn't raise no fool. 'Cause you can't put a price on a miracle. Hey.
Oops. So I'm gonna back up a second. I just wanted to hit this real fast. Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. So if you're young or weren't part of the church or didn't live through the 80s and 90s, they were notoriously famous for basically getting a lot of money. There's rumors that they were bringing in like $1 million a week just in people donating to their ministry. And Jim Baker actually did time. He did jail time. He was initially sentenced to like 45 years. He ended up getting his sentence reduced and served 5. And what's really sad in this, I remember reading a book, I don't know, in the mid 90s when he was actually in jail, and the person who wrote the book went and visited Baker, and he was talking to him, and Baker told him, he's like, this sentence was not God's judgment against me, it was God's mercy. And I thought, okay, good, maybe the guy learned something and realized you can't manipulate people. You can't use ministry money for your own personal gain and become, multi-millionaire, become wealthy at the expense of other people when they're giving money to actually do work in the ministry. However, shortly after he got out of the big house, he basically just picked up where he left off. He just called it something different. So he said, he thought, the prosperity gospel message was wrong, but now he's into something called apocalypticism or something like that. So now he's like selling, dried food and water tablets and stuff, and it's very possible. Some people may need those. I'm not trying to denigrate that, but he went from one hustle to the next hustle, and it's really sad, So and he asked who's going to be the replacement of the next fakers, replacing Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and unfortunately there's a ton of people out there. So here's my encouragement to you. If you see someone on television asking for money, guess what, you don't have to give it to them. Don't give it to them. If you're a Christian and you have a church, you give money to your church. You give as God's blessed you, and you work it out in your time and your budget, right? You don't have to give beyond what you can give or what you feel comfortable to give. Is there times to give sacrificially? Yeah, probably there are. I've given sacrificially. It happens. It doesn't happen all the time though. If you're constantly giving sacrificially because someone's asking for more money because they can't budget their stuff, it's not your fault, right? So hey, I want to read a scripture to you though. It's in Luke 21, and a lot of times this scripture is used, most time it's used out of context. Most people use it as a encouragement to give when you don't have anything to give, which is crazy, right? So in Luke 21:1-4 it says, "And he looked up and saw the rich putting in their gifts into the treasury, and he saw a poor widow putting in 2 small copper coins. And he said, 'Truly I say to you,'" this is Jesus speaking, "'truly I say to you, this poor widow put in more than all of them. For they out of their surplus put into the offering, but she out of her poverty put in all that she had to live on." So you hear preachers often use this scripture and say, Jesus, he, praised this lady for giving sacrificially, and the truth is he didn't. He was just stating a fact. All he did was say what she did. He wasn't giving her kudos. He wasn't saying, hey, this is a new way to do it. You always give everything you have and you're constantly broke. But what happens is people forget the verse before that, because it's a different chapter. The thought's continuing, and he says this. Jesus says this. He says before he talks about the lady giving her all she had in the offering. He said, "Beware of the scribes who like to walk around in long robes and love respectful greetings in the marketplace and chief seats in the synagogues and places of honor at banquets, who devour widows' houses and for appearance's sake offer long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation." So I'm telling you, these people who replace the bakers and who are consistently asking for money and just spending lavishly and probably aren't doing what they said they're going to do with the ministry money, they're going to have an issue. God's going to judge them more severely. They'll have a greater condemnation. So so here, you give if you want to give. Guess what? You don't want to give, you don't give. Easy as that. Let's finish this back up a second and finish this song.
What's they dead? What's they Pentecost? What's they doing? What's they your mama's dead? They got gold in them. So, who's gonna be the new king
there you go. That is Send Me Your Money by Suicidal Tendencies. So if this video has been a blessing to you, do me a favor, like it, share it, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back in a couple days with another video. Until then, blessings to you and your family.